Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. This episode is sponsored by Janji. Janji is a local to Boston running apparel company dedicated to exploring, connecting, and giving back through running. Inspired by travel, informed by function, and built for adventure, Janji makes running essentials to equip you wherever you run or roam. The company was founded on the core belief that water is a human right and donates 2% of their sales to supporting clean water organizations around the world. I've known the two co-founders of Janji for over 5 years, and it's been a privilege to see them grow and increase the level at which they've been able to give back to the running community and to the world in general. This episode is also brought to you by UCAN, a sports nutrition product that I love. They're having their Cyber Week sale right now. Head over to UCAN at ucan.co to take advantage of their biggest sale of the year. The code FTLR has been upgraded to 30% off site-wide. Now's the time to try something new. Welcome back. I have Liz McHutcheon joining me on the podcast today, also known as Running on Venti, if you've seen her on social. Liz, thank you so much for taking some time to chat today.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate you asking me to be on this. I feel like it's an honor.
And I feel like it's an honor to chat with you. We communicate so often through Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff. I feel like I know everything about what's going on, and probably vice versa. So it's fun to go beyond a couple of sentences.
And we're not even that far from each other right now.
That is correct. Just a couple of towns, but it might as well be Pluto.
I know, exactly.
Well, awesome. So before we get too far, first question, who is Liz?
I've been preparing for this question.
You had the answers to the test.
Who is Liz? Oh, gosh. Well, I like to look at it as the labels I wear in this life. So Liz is Liz, and she is a mom. She's a wife. She's an animal lover. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. Trail runner, writer, meditator, avid reader. Yeah, you name it. I've been around for a little while, so there's a few labels.
Awesome. Well, I've watched you. It feels like you've gotten deeper and deeper into the trail and ultra world, as I have as well. Is that a recent development, or is that something that you've been doing for a while? It feels like you're running longer and faster and all of these things.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. So the trails, most of my life I was a road runner, and I probably started trail running when we got our older dog, Thor, to be honest. An
amazing name for a dog.
And for a golden retriever. I mean,
yeah, I know, right?
When he was a puppy, we lived walking distance to trails, and we would walk him down and go. And I started running with him and found how much fun it was. It reminded me of being a kid. And I work with BJ at Yogi Triathlete, who's my coach, and his wife, Jess. And I remember when she did the Mendocino 50K, and she talked about doing it. And I said to my husband, don't worry, I'm never going to do longer than a marathon. And, never
famous last words.
Exactly. Never say never. And so I came to the ultra world after I turned 50. So it's only been almost 4 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm browsing through your Instagram, and these videos of Thor are incredible. I can only imagine the playfulness of a dog like this on the trail. So it seems like a no-brainer to evolve that way. But what is it about the longer distance that you've grown to enjoy?
I'm someone that really likes to test myself and my limits. I've always been someone who I'll just hear something and I won't even be trained for it. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I think once I was on the trails and then just talked about the 50 and how beautiful it was, and I actually have some local, well, we're in Massachusetts. There's some decent local trails. There's Mount Wachusett, there's Monadnock, and actually down the street from me is a decent trail system where I can actually get some vert on some loop repeats. And I just started going more and more on these trails with the dogs by myself. And I just loved it so much that the next year I signed up to do the Mendocino 50K. And
just straight into it.
I did. I don't mess around when I go big, hence running on Venti. I just dive right in.
So what is it about challenging yourself? As you said, you enjoy challenging yourself and exploring limits. Where do you think that came from?
I think it's something that's always been a part of me, even since I was little. And as a kid, I was always pretty competitive, although that's changed now in my later years. It's more about seeing what my body can and cannot do and not pushing it, but taking the steps and just seeing where it leads me. And I just know that every time I go on the trails, I learn something new about myself, or I get further along on my journey here. And in my life experience, I even though sometimes it's not like I go on the trails and I'm in joy the whole time, I hit low points just like everybody. But what I love about it is it can be so different every single time.
Yeah. And I think when you come to it with the context that you're sharing, where it's joy and playing with a dog and going long distances and sort of exploring the limits, you're creating a value of success. You're creating an assessment of success that is like totally within your control, versus on the road, it's a time or it's a PR or it's a BQ or it's whatever it is, breaking XYZ. I think it's really hard to get there, but once you're there, anything becomes possible. And what I've loved about this podcast is the exploration of, like, my intent is to help people unpack what has allowed them to be successful. And I've done 120 plus episodes, and with the professional athletes, what seems to be the most consistent theme is exactly what you said, which is not an objective measure of success, but a subjective measure of success. Getting better, enjoying it, fulfillment, these types of things that are totally separate from a time on the clock.
Yes. And I think for me, I remember doing the Chicago Marathon in, I think it was 2018. No. Yeah. 2018. And I was so obsessed with getting under 4 hours that I ran that marathon. And I remember someone afterwards asking me what my favorite part that I saw along the way. And I had no memory of anything I saw. And I said, I never want to run another race where I'm so obsessed with the time that I don't even notice the people around me or the scenery. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when afterwards. So I think once that happened, and then I got on the trails and I was feeling such joy. And I don't know, I feel like on the trails, the pressure is off, because in road racing, like I could run Chicago. Well, when it happens again, I could run Chicago again, right? And it'd be the same exact route that I did the last time. And you either get a PR or you don't get a PR. I feel like with trail running, no matter what, even if you run the same race again, it's just so different. And it takes the pressure off. Yeah. At least for me, that's how I mentally wrap my head around it.
So how did you get from that marathon in Chicago to where you're at now?
I'd probably say...
we only have 1 hour. No, I'm kidding.
Well, in my almost 54 years now, I would, I would say the number one thing in my life is me committing to finally sitting still in meditation every day. I'm very consistent with that. And in saying that, it's not like I sit down every day in this meditation and I'm fully enlightened and attached. Like, but it just has allowed me to go in and begin to see the thoughts of mine, in my experience, that are holding me back, and helps me challenge old stories and beliefs that I have about myself. And it allows me to take these steps forward to fully live more joyfully in all I do.
So that's fascinating, and was absolutely not what I was not what I was expecting you to say.
What were you expecting?
I literally anything but that.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm particularly interested because I've started doing this on a daily basis. Also, I've been doing a morning yoga meditation led by Tiana Bartoletta, who I'm hoping to have on the podcast at some point soon. She's a multiple-time Olympian and world championship holder and record holder. She's done some very cool stuff, and she is also a yoga instructor and is leading mindfulness.
Isn't it amazing how multifaceted people are?
Yeah, absolutely. So she does it every day at 5 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know how that's the first thing she does, but I like it because it's at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And so for 20 minutes, it's not the start to the day for the East Coast, but it's a good foundation of, okay, you get to be present here and now, and you're focused on one thing. And it's really been like a really good level set around, like, what do I want the context for my day to be? So how have you taken that and applied that to running? Because I've figured out sort of the crossover, the carryover into like how to make my morning better. But how is that what has translated your ability to run into what it is now?
I would say the biggest takeaway for me is that it brings me more into the present moment, and it allows me to see more quickly than I used to. I call it getting in the gap. Well, and Jess from Yogi Trial calls it getting in the gap of between you see the thought going off. For example, the night before, like at night, I'll look at my plan for the next day. 2 or 3 years ago, I would have seen a workout or whatever it is that I was supposed to do the next day. And I would immediately get I can't do that. I don't have time. How am I going to fit this in? And now when I see it, I'm like, okay. And I don't think about it till the next day, because anytime my mind wants to go there, I'm able to say, no, it's not even happening right now. And I bring myself back to the present moment. And it allows me to just walk out the door and start the run no matter where my body is right now. I'm always like, just start. No matter what it looks like, even if I start walking for a minute, just start. And then it's always worth it. And I always do better than I thought I would. And so I would say that's the biggest thing for me, is just always, instead of projecting myself into the future, like right now, I could easily project myself into the future of April 2021. I'm supposed to do Lake Sonoma, and I could be thinking about the fact that my hip flexor is bothering me right now. So I've had to back off a little bit. How am I ever going to run 50 miles? Well, it's not happening right now. All I need to worry about is right here, right now. So I would have to say that is the biggest thing for me, and how I bring this into the running. And then it just translates into all areas of my life.
Yeah, the right here, right now is, first, it's something I'm trying to work on. But I think it allows you to appreciate and be grateful of what you have and what you can do. And then it also is the process versus outcome. Like, if you appreciate what, like, the brick you're putting into the building today, and by the building, I mean like my first coach called training like building a temple of fitness, and so every day was adding a brick, and you needed a lot of bricks in order to create this temple of fitness. And if you missed a brick here or there, it wasn't the end of the world. But over time, you needed to add a lot of bricks. And I think that like initially kicked off my desire or context of like each run both matters and doesn't matter at the same time. And when you can have that sort of level set as you described it, I think it's super important because right now you're dealing with the hip flexor, and hip flexors are annoying. Mine are often angry as well. I like to hit them with a therapy gun, but it's, that's what's going on right now. And as you said, that's not that won't be what's going on in a month or maybe even a week. But that's where your context is now. But I think to have that long-term goal while also appreciating, what you have right now is powerful.
And I've had, and it goes true. Like people are like, well, what if like Sonoma doesn't happen? I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, so I'm going to stay right here and keep the momentum, keep moving forward. So I'm not going to stop my training in something I don't even know. And I will say to you too, it's not like I've reached a destination and I'm fully in the present moment at all times. I'm throughout my day challenged to bring it back to the present moment. It's a daily practice.
Totally. Do you remember your first run?
I was probably a teenager, and I would say my first real running, I remember I was in high school and I ran just for me to make sense of teenagerhood. And I would look at the clock on the wall in my house. I'd go out and do a run before high school started. And then I'd come back and look at the time to see how long I was out there. And then I would ask my dad before I could drive to drive the route so I could see the mileage, because this was before Garmin Phoenix 5Ss. So I would say it was probably like ninth grade. I was always moving around and running or biking and doing crazy stuff with my friends. But that's the first real running I remember.
And what did you like about it?
The same thing I love about it now, probably, but what I really remember is that it was just me and no one was looking for me. No one needed me. I felt this weight off of me, the pressures of school or of trying to navigate being in a friend group, that it was just me, the sound of my breath and my feet on the road. And I really believe it helped me navigate some areas of that time in my life.
So fast forward 20, 30 years. What has been the most surprising change over that time?
Oh, the biggest is for me letting go of always getting on the start line to win.
What do you mean?
Well, when I was younger, I had in me just like if we were on the playground, we used to have these half tires that were like on the playground you could jump over like hurdles. And I remember I would line up and whoever wanted to line up next to me, we would race them. And I always wanted to win. And if I didn't win, I was devastated. Fast forward to later in life when I'm doing 5Ks and I always wanted to do really well or have a really good time or PR. And I think now, and I would say over the last few years, to me, and I think it's from the meditation as well, is I don't think about that anymore. And I don't worry about whether or not I'm going to get a PR anymore. It's not that I don't want to go out and do well and challenge myself and see what I can do. It's just that I don't put that pressure on myself anymore. And it was an external pressure that I put on myself. It's not like someone wanted to sign me or I was going to go to the Olympics. It's just, I wanted to be the best. And sometimes that just made it so I stopped enjoying.
What was what pushed you over the edge to realize that you weren't enjoying it? Or was there a
Definitely
culminating event? Yeah.
I would say that I put some big pressure on me when I was going to run Boston at the age of 50. And it was a race I had wanted to run since I moved here.
And that was your second marathon with 22 years in between, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember wanting to do really well. And I went into that marathon not 100% healthy. I had tested with Inside Tracker, and it was probably one of my first tests I ever did with Inside Tracker, actually. And I was low in iron, and I knew it because I could tell the fatigue. I could tell how I was feeling. And then I went out on a long run. My coach had given me a time to run. And I said, first, I got it in my head that I needed to run 20 miles because that's what everybody else was doing. And what ended up happening with the fact that I had low iron and wasn't feeling good, I ended up being out there a really long time. And I got like almost like a glute high hamstring situation, and that I wasn't able to fully finish. I wasn't where I wanted to be. Let's just say that. And that marathon, I think, was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it was at the same time the most awesome thing I had ever done, because I remember when I saw the Sitco sign, that infamous Sitco sign, and the tears started running down my face that I was going to finish. And even though I was way beyond whatever time I wanted, I had this illusion like, wouldn't it be cool if I run Boston plus BQ? Like I had these, and the marathon was like, oh, we're going to show her something. We're going to show Liz what this is all about. And I remember taking that right on Hereford and at left on Boylston. And I think my time was, I don't know, it was under 5, but it was like way off what I wanted. And everybody's cheering for you like they don't care.
Right.
They don't care. Actually, I just got goosebumps just talking about that. Is they don't care. The fact is I ran the Boston Marathon and I finished the Boston Marathon. And I think that was a big turning point for me that has carried forward to now.
It's such an interesting perspective on that. I've also had a finish at Boston that didn't go well, and I've never thought about it this way. Like the number that is on your watch and in your head, nobody gives a shit about. And as you're running down Beacon Street and Boylston Street, like the fact that you're moving forward is all that matters. And I think in like 2020, the fact that you're moving forward is all that matters, literally. I think it's a super cool reflection. And so how did that become a turning point?
I mean, when it first happened, I would like to tell you I had this great aha moment right after, but I think it took running the Marine Corps Marathon in the fall, and just everything, all the consistent meditation that I was doing from there to now, So over time, I just started seeing and peeling back the true gifts from that race that I didn't see at the time. All I saw at first was that I had only done a little under 5 hours. And I was almost like embarrassed. I was like, how could I've talked so much about the Boston Marathon, and now look, it's almost like I couldn't even see what I had accomplished until just the consistent, like I said, meditation, journaling, and all the work I've done, over the next year from there, where I started to really see it. Because then I did Marine Corps in the fall, and leading up to that marathon, my longest run was only 14 miles because I had done a number on myself after running Boston and after. So, and I remember lining up at Marine Corps, and my one goal was to finish and run the whole thing. And and show like gratitude to everybody along the way, all the volunteers, because I knew I wasn't before getting there, I wasn't 100%. And I just tried to feel gratitude in every mile. And that was probably the first marathon where every mile I ran it for someone in my life or someone that was no longer here. And I remember I was coming to the finish line, and I could see that I was like almost at 5 hours. And I'm like, I am not going over 5 hours. And I don't know how, but there's this like little hill at the end, and I booked it up there. And I think my time was 4:59 something. And I was like, yes, I didn't break 5 hours, but I didn't care because I was so grateful that I got to do that. And it wasn't about the time anymore. I don't know. There was just a whole shift. And I really believe it's because I had to sit. I think sometimes it's hard for us. And in my experience, I like to move. It's hard to sit in discomfort, but that is exactly what we are meant to do in order to move forward. And through sitting still and meditation, that's what's truly allowed me to be where I'm at today. And each race, each step, each thing that's happened in my life, even running and outside of running, has allowed me to get to here. And I can see each thing as a gift to move me further on my journey and really get to know who I am here. Yeah.
Cool. I think that sets up perfectly for another question that I had initially. So when you posted on Instagram on November 11th with a photo of you, perfect stride, moving forward, profile shot. So like the epitome of like, keep moving forward. Your caption was, in 5 months, I will walk up to the start line of the 2021 Lake Sonoma 50. I will have finished another loop around the sun and turned 54. Yet the work is right here, right now. Will the race happen? I have no idea. All I know is just like this entire year, I will keep showing up and doing the work, no matter what it looks like, even when I have doubt, for it is in that moment of doubt where the gift sits. Yeah. So what do I do when it comes? I do what I always do. I sit and breathe. Then I remind myself who I am, and I keep moving forward. I don't have the time to do anything else because, as they say, time waits for no one. So I saw this post and I DM'd you. I was like, we got to talk. And I love this. And so here we are. But I think that it's perfect. It's that like you don't have any option but to keep moving forward and enjoy the discomfort in some capacity. And not just discomfort, but the unknown. And I think that so many of us enjoy long distance racing or short and fast distance racing because there is so much unknown. A podcast I did a few weeks ago comes to mind with a woman named KK Fisher, and she was training for the Moab 240 at the time. And we also talked through her experience of, I'm going to butcher the name, Tour de Giants. It's not how you say it.
No,
but
I know. I know which race you're talking about.
4 days. Anyways, it's 450 miles and takes a week or something like that. Tour de Jance, I believe is how
That
it's said.
sounds right. That sounds right. I think
I
you
have to
got
brush
it.
up on my I was supposed to go to UTMB this summer, so I would have got my my European languages down a little bit better had I done that. But anyway, what she said on her podcast was running is a sandbox where mistakes don't really matter, and the lessons that you learn absolutely matter, and they translate into life. It really sounds like you were saying exactly that in that post, that I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 5 months, but I'm going to, or whatever the, not 5 months, but 5 months.
Yeah, it's 5 months.
But I'm going to learn along the way, and I'm going to give it a go, and we'll see what happens. And so I find that like interest in the unknown to be fascinating. So 2020 has been pretty unknown. I'm curious how you've approached it as a coach, as a with your family and all these things. How have you approached all of this unknown while also training for something that is currently so unknown?
That's a great question. By taking it one moment at a time. So when everything first happened, Lake Sonoma was still happening. Right. And I remember seeing the message that it had been canceled. And I was not surprised. It was almost like... And
you were signed up for the 50 mile at the time?
Yes, 50 miler, yeah. And I remember feeling sadness, probably had some tears. But then honestly, for me, in my experience, I had a little bit of relief, because I have been off and on just battling different, I don't want to use the word battling.
Struggling with.
Yeah. And various sensations in my body. And I think at the time I was a month out, and Jonathan, I had only run like maybe 10 miles on the trail. But if there's something I know about us humans, is we are resilient. We truly can do more than we give ourselves credit for. And I was still, no matter what, going to sign up, get on that start line if it was happening. And I was going to have whatever race experience I was meant to have that day. And then that got canceled. And then I remember sitting a couple days with it, just, I don't like, kind of not knowing what to do with it. Like, okay, well, what now? Do I look for another race? Like, because it was in that moment, like we were just going into kind of Massachusetts. We weren't in true lockdown here, but you know what? We weren't allowed. Nothing was open. You could go to the grocery store. There were lines at the grocery store. And even in those situations, I used to bring myself back to the present moment. Like, I get to go to the grocery store. Yes, I'm standing in line, but I get to go to the grocery store, and there's food in the grocery store. So I would bring myself back to the present moment. I would feel gratitude, and I just kept training, because I wanted to be ready if something did open up, and obviously nothing did. And then I was supposed to also do Everesting in August, where you climb up and down 13 times and you climb over 29,000 feet, the Mount of Everest. And I remember when that got canceled, I really thought that was still going to happen, but then it got canceled. And that was probably harder for me than the one at the beginning of the year, because I think for me, I really thought we were going to get to the other side of COVID by then, that we were going to have a cross country season, that we were going to, like, my daughter, both my kids were going to be in school. I have one in college and one who's a junior in high school. And so on those days, on the more difficult, I sat in more meditation. Like, I would do my morning, and then I would go in when I was feeling doubt, or I would just sit in it. and
What
be
does
like,
that mean?
so it just means instead of going outside to do something, reading a book, scrolling through my phone, I literally sit my butt down and I sit with whatever's coming. And maybe it was tears. Sometimes it's tears. Sometimes it's just trying to bring myself back to my breath because my thoughts are going all over the place. And I truly believe by doing that, and I did some fun things during that time too, from the time that Lake Sonoma was canceled to the time Everesting was canceled, where, we were all doing, like, I climbed up and down my stairs enough times to do a vertical mile. And actually that probably didn't help my hip flexor at the time, but, 4x4x48, just all kinds of fun things. And I would say what this time has allowed me to do is to experience things differently, which also makes me able to be a better coach to my adult athletes and the kids. That no matter what, it's going to be okay. This is something we get to do. And if you're still getting to do it, let's have gratitude for that. So anytime I would feel my thoughts going or the doubt coming, I just try to bring myself, I get in that gap. And sometimes I get in the gap quicker than other times. Sometimes the thoughts keep going. I'm like, oh, whoa, definitely not in the present moment right now. There's the opportunity. And I just take a moment to do some deep breathing to bring myself back. Because I know that right now is the only moment there is. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Janji for sponsoring this episode. Janji Collective members will get a special discount over Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And as a reminder, you can join the Janji Collective for $50, where 100% of your fee goes to supporting clean water initiatives worldwide, and you'll always get a discount. If you use the code FTLR, you'll also get a free singlet. And now back to our conversation. Talk to me about community. What does community mean to you? Oh,
wow. The first thing I think of is during this time and being able to still get outside. Luckily, I live in an area where I can run or get on the trails, and a lot of times I'm alone, or I might see one or two people. But what I've found is I've gotten to know some of my neighbors more now than I would have if this wouldn't have happened. We see each other. Our dogs see each other. How are you doing? What are you doing for Thanksgiving? What do you think of this? Did you vote today? Do you need anything? How are you feeling? I love that feeling of knowing that I know my neighbors, and some of them I didn't even know their name, and I'd been living here almost 6 years. And I'd say community also means just being able to connect with the people I know, even though we can't physically see each other. So
how have you been doing that?
So after this happened in March, an outdoor track wasn't happening, I started having Zoom chats with the girls team at like once a week to check in with them, especially some of the seniors who weren't going to get to finish, especially the ones that had been running the whole time they'd been at Parker. And I just wanted to check, and I thought it would be really good for us all to see each other's face, me to answer any questions, and just have fun and be like, oh, what are you watching these days? Or how's, remote school going? Or, so I would have to say that it's been technology is a huge plus for that kind of stuff. I've also having my kids home for a while. Like my older daughter wouldn't have even been here. She's in her junior year of college now, but she was finishing her sophomore year and she did it remotely here. We were doing things I never, like eating dinner together all together again, playing Clue, watching movies, taking the dogs for walks all together. I'd have to say that's probably one of my, favorite parts of all this. And just connecting with all my friends. I feel like I have, like, it's not like I didn't stay connected to my friends before, but more virtual coffees. Like, I'm like, why didn't we do this before? We weren't living near each other before. And
Yeah.
now, so, yeah, I would say just, it's made me closer to the people that were in my life. And I've also gotten to know new people.
Yeah, I think the part about like why didn't we do this before is fascinating. Like I had a FaceTime with a friend who lives in California back in March, I guess, and she was like, "We've known each other for 5 years, but we've never FaceTimed. Why did it take a pandemic? Like I see her 2 or 3 times a year when I go to California, and that's it." So it's just funny that like that's the um, that evolution happened with so many people. I totally agree. I think that the silver lining in all of this is that when there's not that like small talk of standing in line or whatever, um, we crave it first of all, and we crave the big talk as well. And I think those are the things that we need to seek out more. And like when all this started, I was living by myself and I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I guess I am an extrovert and I crave human attention and connection and whatnot. And I did 14 podcasts in a week because I was like, I'm going to go crazy. Like, I'm going to start talking to my walls. And um, I think for the first week, or for the first 5 or 6, I did it on video, and then I realized that literally everybody was on the internet at the same time, and so this was, degrading the audio quality. But still, it was like that was the best hour of my day, or the best 2 hours of my day, when I got to like have a real conversation with somebody about stuff we both care about. And I think that, like, yeah, that's been the silver lining, that I think a lot of people are getting a lot closer to people that they care about, and that, maybe they've just had like loose relationships with, or, coworkers or neighbors or whatever. I think it's fascinating. And I hope that sticks.
I totally agree with you. I hope that we stay awake. Like, I think many of us we're awake now and we get it. And I hope that we stay awake. Because when this first happened, I realized how grateful I was that I had my husband could easily work at home. I could easily do stuff at home, and both my girls were here. Like, I wasn't alone. I had the dogs, I had the cats. I thought of you, and I thought of my other friends who were alone, and how hard that must have been at first. And then I think, for me at least, what happens is you get past all that, like, how are you? Fine. The chit chat that doesn't mean a lot. You just get right to it. Like, how are you?
Right.
Not good today.
Terrible.
Like, yeah. Like, this sucks. I'm like, I wish I didn't have to wear a mask anymore, or, but that's life. You adjust. And I find that, do you find this, that I feel like we're like all in this together.
Yeah.
Even people I don't know well, or maybe I don't know at all, but I just see them at the store. You almost, like, you look at each other, you kind of like, I'm always like, can they tell I'm smiling? I still smile at people thinking
Smile
they can
with your
see
eyes.
Me. Yes, exactly. I'm like, my eyes crinkled. I have those smile lines from all my years. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that, is happening in the world, and just having that connection. Like, yeah, I remember going to bed just last night and thinking I had an awesome day yesterday. I had so many people I connected with. I got to talk to one of my athletes. I got to have a Zoom with 2 friends. Like, it was just like one of those days where you feel energized because I'm like you. I like to talk to people. Like, I need to talk. I like to talk. So if I have days where there's not a lot of that,
they said unlike you.
Yeah.
Got it. Anyway.
So anyway.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The like, we're in it together vibe has definitely increased, and I think that like the hope that we now have ahead of us with changes politically and
Yes.
also vaccine, light at the end of the tunnel, this kind of stuff. It's a vibe that we haven't felt in a while, and it's exciting.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you.
Awesome. So talk to me about switching gears a little bit. One of the things that I like to ask on this podcast is measures of success or something you're proud of. So fast forward 10 years, what are you going to be really proud of?
Oh, wow. It's funny because in 10 years, I'm going to be almost 65, which is so funny to think about because it's so funny. Rarely I don't sit around all day, be like, whoa, I'm almost 54. I really don't think about it. Gosh, 10 years. I would say that I've been working on video and some different ways creatively to leave more of my legacy for my kids and things that I say that I think that they're not listening to, and then I'll hear them repeat it to a friend. So I think in 10 years, if I can start to hear my kids who will be older and adults and maybe, I don't know, doing amazing things, that I'll hear some of what I tried to share with them from my life and them repeating it. Maybe they'll even be meditating.
And running 50 milers.
Yes. I don't know about that. I'm the only crazy one in my family, but with that, but we all run in some form. But I don't know, you kind of got me on that one, Jonathan, is that I'd have to say my kids somehow in the legacy. I just want to know that I've been of service to someone.
I love that.
Somehow I've said something that made them see more of themselves.
So the last conversation I had with my grandfather was along the same lines. He basically told me that the meaning of life is to do that, to leave, to push things forward and allow everybody to live a better life, essentially. And I think that that's the highest possible aspiration or the highest possible goal that we can have. So I love your answer.
Oh, good. I got it right. Good. All right.
No, it's not a test, but
I know.
It's just fascinating that, like, again, right along the same storyline or same theme as some of the pros that have said this. I've talked with a couple that have either just joined a team or they've been on a team that they've been that has existed for a while. And I think it was Mel Lawrence that said she wants to contribute to the longevity of the sport and the team so that the athletes that come after her have a better experience and essentially set the bar even higher. And I think that that's admirable.
I love that. I love Mel. She's probably one of my favorite people. I'm so grateful that I've gotten to know her over the years of doing wild running with Lauren and everybody. And I love that. And I feel good about the future and this younger generation, which you're also a part of. But my kid, the one thing that I loved about this time was just seeing my kids not wait around to take action, not wait around for someone else to tell them to do something. Even if they were making mistakes along the way, I've learned so much from them. And just watching that unfold, which has been amazing too. Yeah.
Cool. Switching gears again. How do you feel about balance?
That's a word that's, I think, used a lot and at least for me, a long time ago, used to cause me great distress that I wasn't balanced. And over the years, I've learned that you can't give 100% to every single thing in your life. I mean, I know that for sure. And that there's going to be times in your life where the balance is going to tip toward, like, you want this goal, and it's going to, just like with running training, right? So if I'm training for the 50 miles, at some point, that's going to have to take precedent, that goal, over other things in my life, where I'm going to have to ask someone else to pick up some things in my family, you know, like my husband, like, I need you to go do this. I just can't, I got to get this long run in today. I don't believe that it's truly something that exists. I think there's always something that I think you can give 100%, but you're giving like 70% to something and then only 30% to something else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a budget.
Yeah. And I'm a former accountant, so I often think in numbers. So there you go. It balances out.
Yes. The balance balances out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two particular explanations sort of fall right into that. Lindsay Krause and Mary Johnson. Lindsay looked at it as a triangle with differing sides, and Mary's explanation was seasons, and you can go all in sometimes, but it can't always be that way. Just like a triangle can't always, continue growing on one side, or it can't always be an obtuse triangle or whatnot.
I love that,
because it just falls apart.
Or it's just like how you, like the other week, you pulled your mileage back, and now you're back into it again. Like it's all about ebbs and flows and listening.
Yeah, and I think that's the piece that I've learned the most about, versus like trying to push all the time, and then burning yourself out, versus listening to these cues that, I forget who said it, but someone's like, listen to your body when it's whispering before it starts yelling.
Totally. A few weeks ago, and I was just thinking about this today, I wrote in my journal after a meditation, I wrote the question, what if I truly listen to my body? Like I talk about it, like, yeah, listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body. But what if I what does that look like? And I started to realize I thought I was listening to my body, but I was not. And this hip flexor thing is a prime example. I thought I was listening and sometimes backing up, but I wasn't. I was pretty stubborn about it, which is something I still need to learn. And I instead of me just knowing I needed to back up, I knew deep down, I just need to back off. I need to not be running every day right now. I needed to go to a PT to have them validate it for me. Because if they validate it for me, then it's okay if I back off. Right. I totally saw the whole cycle of it. I'm like, why wasn't it good enough for you just to know?
Right. Why do you think so?
Because I was looking, it's that outside of me instead of looking inside of me and being okay with it. I was looking, well, how's that going to look to people? They're going to be like, oh, she's just being lazy. Why is she not running as much? Nobody, like we were talking about at the beginning, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares, but it was very important to me that I had to get that validation, and then it would be okay for me to back off. And now I see the opportunity for me there was, no, Liz, you knew all along. So the next time I'll just, and I'm not saying you don't need to sometimes go see a PT. It's important, but I could have started backing off before I got that validation.
Right. Yeah, totally makes sense. What do you wish people knew about you?
Ooh, I like that one. Actually, I'm a really, well, let me back up and say that a little bit better. I actually love to sing and dance.
All right. That's going to be the outro. You can sing the outro.
No, please.
Unfortunately, this is just audio, so we can't do video, but so there'll be no dancing. But
I am someone that I can sometimes be, I have like a playlist where I'll listen to, like, just put on Bohemian Rhapsody and I'm in my car by myself and I am singing at the top of my lungs, or get some Wham on, I'm like all about Wham or Duran Duran even. But that's dating myself. But yeah, I love to sing and dance. And I actually was a pre-fashion major when I first went to college, and I love to draw and paint.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Liz, thanks so much for taking some time to chat. If we want to follow along with, actually, I forgot to ask, talk to me about before I ask what it is, talk to me about your social media or your Instagram handle and where that came from.
So it's running on Venti, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I used to be, but I never looked at it, and it's just not the place for me.
It's not a fun place these days anyway. They just added stories, so.
Well, and it's intense, and I just find it's too fast for me. It's always changing, and I was like, why do I have this? I don't have to have it. So I got rid of it. So running on Venti came, this woman who is a business coach to me and a friend local to me, we have, my younger daughter and her oldest are the same age. And we got together one time. I just wanted to throw some ideas out there, and we started talking about my running and coaching. And, I would say it's 5 years ago now. We started being like running on this, running on that, blah, blah. And I love coffee, but it's more than the coffee. But I will say it came from that I always, no matter what, get a Venti at Starbucks. And having said that, I don't always go to Starbucks. I do like local coffee shops, but it's running on Venti is about going big, but it's about not letting yourself play small and be who you truly are because of fear. And I really feel that one of the reasons I'm here is to share my experiences, to show other people and guide them to see that they actually have everything they need inside them. Sometimes they just need some help bringing it out. And that this is, like they say, it's not a dress rehearsal and time waits for no one. Why not now? What's holding you back? Just go for it.
I love that. I think that's a perfect place to wrap. Normally, I'd now ask for where can we find you on social, but you've already addressed that. So thank you for that lovely summary there. And hopefully see you out on some trails at some point soon. Maybe Thor can be involved.
I know you need to meet Thor and Ginger.
Yes,
you love to meet dogs. You've got to meet them sometime. So maybe eventually we can be masked and socially distant.
Deal.
You can see that.
Sounds like a plan. Awesome. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Of course.
Thanks.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run. And in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.